Southern California Technical Advisory Group. So at the end of our course today, one of the last things we go through is on the Southern California Technical Advisory Group, kind of what we do, what's going on, what is moving forward, what we're working on with the state, trying to get clarification on. And that'll be the end. Terry Carrier's the chair, and Nick and I try and bring him issues and keep him very busy and confused. So some of the objectives today, we're going to try something a little different. I've got a computer for internet and a computer for the PowerPoint. So we're going to switch back and forth a little bit because while I'm going to give you information and hopefully you'll leave here with a better understanding of where is the point of generation for determining waste, you're going to see some state and federal areas, websites, figure out ways to get answers yourself. How many people in here have more than 5 years experience? More than 10? 15? All right, so you're the guys, when I don't know something, I'm going to call on you. I've only been doing this like 12, 13 years, and I don't know everything, so you probably do. No. I have not found anyone that knows everything. There are a lot of people who are subject matter experts in different areas. There's so much to know, and there's so much to learn. And our businesses, I come from a family of small business people. I've ran a small business doing septic system, perk testing, installation, that type of work before I came over here. And I really go out there in the field and look at it like, if I don't know what I'm talking about, I have a hard time expecting my businesses to know better than me. Because the people in this room, we're expected to be the experts, right? I mean, they're looking to you for answers. And even if they want to comply, if you don't know what they need to do to comply, we're not going to get where we need to be for the purposes of protecting the environment and public health like we're here to do. So we'll learn how to apply some of these Title 22 requirements, and we'll go through a bunch of pictures. Terry's brought in a whole bunch of slides. It's kind of show and tell. He'll show you some pictures, and we'll just open it up to talk about it. That'll be just starting off the second half of our morning session here. So jumping right into it. Anyone have any questions at this point? If you do have a question, don't be afraid. If you need candy, don't be afraid. I got a good arm. I got a 5- and 7-year-old. I throw them pitches all night when I get home. All right. So this is like the crux of what we do. And when I go out to businesses and we stumble across these problems and issues in compliance and what we're dealing with, and they're wondering, okay, what do I need to do for my tank system? Does this need secondary containment? Do I have to do these daily inspections? Everything that we do really depends on figuring out where the point of generation is so that you know when they have something that's subject to our regulation and so that you know how to count and what generator status. That's where the samples are taken. We make the waste determination, container tank standards, and air standards would apply from the point of generation. How many people are a little newer, maybe didn't know that we have air standards to enforce under our authority? Everyone? Because there are a lot of VOCs that the air district is going to regulate and make sure they don't go up in the air. But there are a lot of VOCs that don't go up. So they come out of processes, waste treatment processes normally. It's got to be a hazardous waste before it gets pulled in. But that once they get out in the environment, they don't go up. They go into the soil or the groundwater. So I'll show you a resource for getting more information there. So point of generation to me is like kind of like a treasure hunt. And now I just try when I go out there to my inspections. Sometimes I'll have, fortunately, got some information from our wastewater inspector or from previous inspections that have a nice written process description, but it's kind of like, where's Waldo? Okay, what do you got going on? Where? Okay, here's a way. So point of generation, according to RCRA state law, when a waste is generated, the generator must determine whether the waste is hazardous. Point where the waste is first generated. And we throw this slide in here, and hopefully it's not taken out of context, but this is from a manual that we'll reference here in a minute. The point of generation is usually the point which a generator first determines the material is no longer useful, or the point at which the generator decides to discard the material. This doesn't mean that something's not a waste until the generator decides it's a waste. It just means that the generator has done something through an act or a process that would be considered discarded, abandoned, relinquished by being recycled, accumulated, stored, or treated, and pulled into our regulatory scheme. So I hear a lot of new inspectors, they go through and they're like, oh, the generator has to determine. Oh, no, they say it's still good. Well, it's great if they can use it, and there might be a recycling provision to get them out, but it's a waste when it's defined as a waste. And that's a document we'll refer to here. EPA puts out. So we'll just look at some process tanks here. Processes, okay? So these are tanks that are used, we'll just call it metal finishing, electroplating. Waste A, process A, B, and C. They discharge from each tank. And how are we doing here? Is it advancing? All right, materials used in the process, piping transfers the liquid when it's no longer useful. So we're going to say that it's not used again. Where are the points of generation here? Anyone want to be the top of the class today? Let's see. The points of generation are, I thought I had removed all these individual. Last year someone corrected me and did point out that, aha, you forgot that one, buddy. So points of generation are your waste A, your waste B, your waste C, A, B, and C. They're all different, right? And then what comes out of your tank should be A, B, and C. So that's why we listed those. So those are the points of generation. So now we're commingling tanks A, B, and C. All right, my animation. This is my boss put this together, and I'm still going with it. So where do you sample to make the waste determinations? Pretty straightforward, right? It's right what we just said. It's a hard concept. Anyway, me dealing with businesses, we have some super small businesses. We have large businesses. We have backcountry. People think San Diego and they picture the city, but I grew up in a town of less than 3,000 up in the mountains with about 10 people per square mile. So we've got backcountry too. And explaining to businesses that, no, you don't sample here. You got to look at all this here, here, and here to figure out where we fit you in to these requirements. Yes? That's a good question. At the time they're ready to discharge, I would suggest that they just grab a sample from their tank. The dotted line is a theoretical, again, in theory. Usually they're going to have individual pipes going over to the collection system unless they've had a PE look at mixing and incompatible materials. But with this theoretical one, they theoretically could have a point where A and B are mixing in the pipe and have made a new type of waste stream that's different than A or B on its own. Does that make sense? Oh, sorry. Let me finish up, sorry. If at some time your business, the business discharges A and B at the same time into a common pipe, or all three of them at the same time into that common pipe, then I would agree, yes. There would be 5 samples there to do your different points of generation.
What if waste A is hazardous and then get down to waste A, let's say not hazardous,
We call that pre-treatment and tiered permitting. Anyone catch tiered permitting? They're really setting the bar high for me because I don't have a cool retro tuxedo or platforms. I'll see if I can grow the fro out. I did my best John Wilson impression here, try and get the goat coming in. I figure the crowds will come in like core body language if I can get that nice. Sorry. So, and my next slide, I think will hit the point for you right here. So again, looking at points of generation, in this case, you've got an acidic and a caustic material. They're mixing together, say in the pipe, non-hazardous waste discharged to POTW. So the piping is used to mix and transfer liquid when it's not useful. Where are the points of generation? And the points of generation, wait. All right. Now, I'm going to show you the OSW, Office of Solid Waste answer. So that same question, just like I read it, individually to the collecting pipe, two ways to neutralize each other, result in non-hazardous waste. Is there a point of generation? And here's what the Fed said. Each of the corrosive wastes has a point of generation that's upstream of the collecting pipe. So the point of generation was back before they mixed. And what is facts back? All right. Now we're going to try and work our magic here. And I am going to have my friend Nick show you how we can find information in the RCRA online database. So this is anyone here use this? Okay, good. I found a lot of times I can't find state guidance on a topic, so, kind of in default, and we're going to go with what the feds say and start there. RCRA online. Let's go ahead and do a advanced search. Well, click on topic search real quick because I want to show you. You can search by topic, and you can see some of the topics here from containers, exclusions, F waste questions, hazardous waste recycling. There's a whole list in PDF form of documents that's been put together from various EPA sources. I have found, though, that they didn't really organize topics well, so I have better luck going to starting with advanced search or going to full text search. And you probably, if you know what you're looking for and can do an advanced search, you can probably just go on the internet and search RCRA online or RO and the number and pop it up. My kids asked me a question, even remember what the question was, and I said, I don't know. And they said, well, ask Google. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's ask Google. Google knows everything. So you can type in RCRA online. This is the one that we actually did before. You just type the number in, right? So he knew the number in that case, and so this is the document that I referred to in my PowerPoint. Now go ahead and step back, and let's just erase. Go ahead and start again, advanced again. Let's see if, all right, so now in the title, just type point of generation and see what comes up. All right, so it's the one that we already have looked at is now highlighted, and here's a bunch of other ones on point of generation if you're looking for an answer to a question on point of generation. So good resource here. The advanced or the full text search is going to look for words, and there's instructions on how to use it on the site there. We'll look again at a couple other RCRA Onlines as we get going here. Go ahead and switch back to the PowerPoint. That's my slide? It looks just like where you were. What a team, I think. So I tried to embed the links on all the PowerPoint slides in case you wanted to get there. Some of the links may have changed. Unfortunately, they do that, and I don't check them all the time. So why would we go to what EPA says? And really, just quick understanding for some of you that don't know, the Title 22 mirrors 40 CFR, almost word for word in most cases. I have a white paper. It's about 8 pages long of where it differs because I attended a class by McCoy's seminars, and now I can cheat. But there are exceptions, kind of like the waste counting section and CESQG concept that we almost don't even recognize in California. The point here is that if it reads exactly the same in 40 CFR as it does in Title 22, then the EPA guidance is probably good. So they're all good source docs, even for California. So again, I put this in here just to remind everyone that we are different, and sometimes it might behoove you to contact someone at DTSC to make sure they're not thinking something different. But good guidance, policies, definitions, and then check your Title 22 Health and Safety Code and the DTSC website. So these are the main links: laws, regs, and policies. I think I use that Title 22 at least 4 times a week. Click on this link right here and go to the regs. Go ahead and let's switch on over to the DTSC website. All right. So the page looks different than my slide. Oh, go ahead. That's a great question, and I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention that. Yeah, the EPA sometimes does go back on their interpretations. In the past, they had done fairly well at removing them or putting, and maybe we'll find one here later today, but they're supposed to, and they have in the past, put superseded. So as you look at a document that's in there, it will say superseded by and have the other document. But that's not always true. If this is something that's been going on for a long time, an issue that was brought up in the 80s, then there probably have been changes over the years. If it's something that was a newer issue, I think there could be a change, but I've seen superseded on all the ones that I'm aware of. All right, so now we're on the DTSC website. Hopefully everyone knows how to get here and has used this before. So publications and forms. I'm going to show you a link that just some people have never stumbled across on the website. And if you go to publications and forms and then the publications index here, or is it fact sheets? We'll find out in a second. There are a lot of publications. Anything you could think of, right? I mean, accumulation, you've got questions on asbestos, auto body and paint resources, English, Spanish. I mean, everything from jewelry shops. I think there's like 6 different languages if you're dealing with jewelry shops. I'm trying to get them down to the H's, where hazardous waste and recycling letters are. And there we go. Go ahead and click on that link right there. So this is a resource I use a lot. The area I have ends up having some aerospace and hospitals and plating, metal finishing. And a lot of my shops generate more waste than, say, the average inspector. So they're always looking at ways to recycle and trying to figure out if I reuse the water, if I reuse the solvent, where does it fit into the regulatory scheme. And this is a great resource because you can type in, just put like, I don't know, blast media, or I deal with a lot of blast media. And they're always trying to reuse it, recycle it. I mean, you can see how many times it comes up. US technology, the plastic media. You can type in the name of a company. If you type in like Portland Cement, the letters that have Portland Cement come up. It's a good resource. And we're going to come back here later. Or if you have a question today, or I can't answer a question, let's see what we can find while we've got an internet connection. All right, I think that's all for this slide right now.
Is there a place for the fax back on the website, the fax back?
For the fax back, like to actually get fax back now?
Well, or can you go, is it on the website where the historical fax back answers are?
So that whole compendium is within the RCRA online database, and they don't actually do faxbacks anymore since the introduction of the internet. I think it pretty much ended sending people back fax answers. There is no link from the state site to the EPA RCRA online database as far as I know, but they probably should. I know you can get to all Cal EPA, and from the Cal EPA website you can get to the regional EPA website. But that RCRA online has all the regional EPAs all put together. So that's the best resource for, did I answer your question? Kind of? Okay. All right, fact sheets, publications, forms. We just went there. All right. So right now I'll take you through a few pictures of tanks, processes. All right. Some scenarios here. And then later on today, we'll look at real pictures from the field from not that long ago and see what you guys think. So again, this is a process tank. It's got an outflow. Once it leaves this process tank, it's waste settling. You've got an initial sludge that accumulates in the bottom. They pull that out, send it over to a heated drying tank, end up with some dried sludge and some non-hazardous wastewater to sewer. How many points of generation can you see there? Anyone? Did I hear anyone shout out? Thought I heard a 3, 4. Watch, I can do magic and it'll tell me the answer. So, in this case, we end up with 4. We've got this sludge that's settling and going to come out to here. Then after they heat it, it's a new point of generation. It's different than the waste that was before. You've got the separated water coming out, and of course, back to our initial process, what it was before it was treated. Now, obviously, this one is not, it says it's not in hazardous waste, so it's a point of generation, but it's not within our regulations.
How does the concept of closed system fit into reducing the
The points of generation would remain unchanged. However, what you're expected to do under the RCRA and California program could be reduced, because if you can do a closed loop recycling, you're going to meet an exclusion from classification as a waste, because it's more like a material. So you might have enclosed treatment processes. You'll still have all the points of generation, but you're going to be excluded from regulation because in your system, your waste is more material-like. You're going to keep using it within your process. So it would not change the points of generation. But every time you start manipulating a waste within a treatment process, you're going to have a new point of generation. Does that make sense? Everyone good? Okay. All right.
Hey, Leon,
Yes.
on that classified,
All right, hold on. I'm going back. All right.
at the initial onset of it, would there be 5 points because you wouldn't necessarily know that your discharge to POTW is non-haz?
So you're thinking, where would there be an additional point of generation possibly?
When it discharges, I think you have on that slide, if it discharges to POTW.
Yeah, so this is what I'm trying to show, the arrow that's discharging to POTW. So that is all connected to the sewer line,
Okay.
which no POTW I'm aware of is going to let them discharge hazardous waste. So that's kind of the post-treatment non-haz. All right, so now we're talking to these tanks, process tanks. You know, we always start with a process tank. Can a process tank be regulated as a hazardous waste tank? Who wants to shout out? Come on, help me out. Yes and no. Perfect. Thank you. I love this hazardous waste world. The answer is always it depends. I'm always setting you up when I ask you a yes or no question. Yeah, I'm not even sure what this tank is, but it definitely doesn't look good. Looks like they. Yeah, so yeah, point of generation on a process tank. Leads us right into our next area here. So there is an exclusion, right? Because we're not regulating material processes, and it is exempt if it's generated in a raw material storage tank, process tank, transport vessel for raw material, pipeline, manufacturing process unit. However, the other part of that exclusion is going to say it's exempt until it leaves the unit remains in a unit that's not in operation for more than 90 days, or when the unit is basically discharging onto the land. So someone's got a truckload of solvent in a tanker truck, your little business, and they kind of park their truck off and leave it, and basically the truck stops working. They can't make deliveries anymore. They stop doing that whole line of business, and now they're in a whole, this is a situation I have. They're kind of in a whole another line of business now, but that stuff's still sitting over there. They're not using it as a material. It's not in transport. So if they leave it 90 days, you can pull it into our world of regulation. It's a waste. Now, if they find a use for it, it doesn't mean they have to send it off-site on a hazardous waste manifest. They might be able to find a way to recycle that somewhere else. It just means you have the authority to go in there and make them do something with it. So let's take a look here. So silver cyanide in process tanks, non-operational for greater than 90 days. In this case, was about a year. So is this a waste or a material at this point? It's a waste. The whole, how about the tank? Is this tank now subject to, if this is a large quantity generator and this waste is in here, are they subject to tank system standards? Unfortunately, yeah. Are you going to make them go double wall on this? Or are you going to work something out with their process to change it out? I'll let you make the call on that. Go ahead.
Speculative accumulation play a part in this? If the generator was sliding that, would you say 190 days?
Speculative accumulation is one way that a material can get pulled into the regulatory scheme. And that is a good point. The exclusion that I started with here was basically a raw material storage tank. And I, at this point, was just showing that to meet the conditions of that exclusion, you can't leave it in a non-operational tank for more than 90 days. So speculative accumulation is typically going to be if you don't keep turning over your waste. That's different than accumulating too long, right? Speculative accumulation is where you've got something that's possibly material-like, and you're kind of hoarding it. Like, say it's got gold in it, and you just want to keep saving it because at some point you just want to pull all the gold out of your hazardous waste over here. Speculative accumulation says that if you're not turning over that at a click of 75% a year, depending, and your year can almost be 2 years depending on the dates, but that's not you're not treating that like a material. That's a waste, and it pulls it in.
Well, I mean, like if I'm doing an inspection, I've seen a situation where it's been over 90 days in that tank, and it was applied, presumably still be used as applied.
Right.
Not by this company. This guy just says, well, this is speculative accumulation, so I can store it for more than 90 days. Or that.
So you could work with your business, and possibly in that case, it's really not non-operational. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think if the intent is to not ever do anything with this again because they're not going to use it, pull them into the regulatory scheme and have them manage it. But if it's a business that has a use for it, then find a way to work with them and use it. That's the tact I would take. But speculative accumulation I don't think is the right term there, because that would kind of say he's accumulating hazardous waste, which would be subject to our regulations anyway. So they'd still need a tank system standards. That makes sense? You probably wouldn't want to call it that exactly. Yeah.
On the previous slide, you showed some solids accumulated on site.
Uh-huh.
What about routine maintenance? If they shut the process down, go back and clean out the residuals that are on the tank components.
Great. That'd be great if they did that.
So does that make the tank one generation, or is that still part of
So it'd still be a process. I mean, it's still a process tank. Clean outs for material tanks, again, would fall within the conditions of exclusion of it's not a waste until it exits the unit. You're not making it non-operational. It's kind of like a plating process. At some point, you might want to change out your cyanide bath, and you're going to pull it out. That doesn't mean that you now have a hazardous waste tank because you generated waste from that process. All right, so in this case, yeah, the generator confirmed that the rinse tank was non-operational. So we just go through the process. You got to ask the questions. How long have you, what are you doing with this? What is that? You know, what are you doing with it? Oh, nothing. We don't use that tank anymore. Well, what's in there? Oh, rainwater and whatever it used to be. I don't know, silver cyanide. Okay, well, if you ask enough questions and identify that it's a waste, then we're going to have them do something about it. Here's one of my sites, and it's a Zinc galvanizer. They have a bunch of large tanks for long metal parts that they work on.